They should really change the lyrics of that song. No longer is it hit him with the 4 like Auston Matthews, now I feel like it should be hit him with the 6, in the 6 with Auston Matthews, because man oh man, has this guy shown off to all the haters, to all those who said that his 60-goal season was a fluke and that last season was more of a realistic expectation for the guy. Auston Matthews is telling everybody to shut up. Because man oh man has this guy gone out there and stomped on the competition to open up 23-24. If you missed the video we made talking about the Leafs and the Canadiens Wednesday, then we'll get you up to speed. Auston Matthews scored a hat trick, including 2 goals in the last few minutes of the game to tie things up and send it to overtime. The Maple Leafs ended up winning in a shootout thanks to a very nice shot by Mitch Marner, but Auston Matthews was the headliner as one of the only players, and I say one of the only players and not the only player, to get a hat trick in the first game this year. The other, of course, was Brock Boeser. But for Matthews, he had scored some very nice goals, really nice snipes in tight, great shots from very wide angles too. Matthews has made a killing scoring goals from far angles this year, and the opening game against Montreal really set the tone. So with 3 goals in his first game, second in the NHL in goals at that time behind Brock Boeser, who scored 4, Auston Matthews came into the game against Minnesota with a vengeance, because guess what? The guy went out there and scored another gosh darn hat trick, and these goals were equally pretty as the ones scored against Montreal. The first goal of the game for Auston Matthews, he receives the puck in the slot. Very nice movement by the Maple Leafs to dump it in, retrieve it on the half boards, and throw it over to Matthews. He takes a quick shot, far side, beats the goalie. It's a tie game 1-1. Matthews has his 4th of the season. Just a few minutes later, though, on the power play, 4-on-3, Nylander sends a pass over to Matthews, who is again on that far angle, left side, and he's able to pot it right by. He looks like he's throwing it to the goal mouth for a pass for Tavares, but the video review reveals that it is a Matthews goal. He gets it right by the goalie and the defenseman right in front. 2 goals in the period for Auston Matthews, and then in the third period, this is where Matthews gets his hat-trick marker. It's a classic NHL 23 style wraparound. He takes the puck behind the net and, holding it on the backhand, pops it out in front and shoves it either far side or 5-hole. I'm not really too sure from the video feed, but he gets his 3rd goal in the third period. That's 6 goals in 2 games for Auston Matthews. Undisputed lead at the top of the NHL for goals. And this video just kind of goes over how crazy everything is with these numbers. You see, Auston Matthews getting 2 hat tricks in the first 2 games of the season makes him one of only 4 players in NHL history to record a hat trick in each of their first 2 games to start the season. Joining these names: Alex Ovechkin in 2017-2018, Cy Denny from 1917-1918, Joe Malone from 1917-1918, and Reg Noble from 1917-1918. My question is, what the hell happens in the NHL in 17-18s that causes so many players to get hat tricks in their first 2 games? There were 3 in 1917-1918, none for the next 100 years, and then Alexander Ovechkin gets one in 17-18 and 2017-2018, excuse me. 100 years apart, something is in the water. And Auston Matthews is able to get this done in 23-24. Only the second time this has happened in 100 years. And the only other guy to do that was Alex Ovechkin. Now, of course, you're kind of nitpicking the stats and choosing some really particular factors to make this stat work. Of course, it's not like the most accessible type of stat to look at, but it still gets pretty crazy when you acknowledge the 3 guys that did this 100 years ago. Let's talk about Cy Denny, because he was a 5-time Stanley Cup champion. He won it 4 times with the Senators and once with Boston. Hockey Hall of Famer, left winger, is only 5'7", pretty good player, and a guy who had amassed 300 points in 300 NHL games, so good for him. Reg Noble is a guy who also won 3 Stanley Cups. He was a Toronto St. Pat, so legitimate old school NHL stuff going on there. He played in the late teens, the 20s, the 30s a little bit as well. And then Joe Malone, the other guy to get 2 hat tricks in his first 2 games. Yeah, he's the guy that scored 7 goals in 1 game in 1920. A record that I think most people know by heart by now. Oh, who scored the most goals in 1 game? It was Joe Malone, not to be confused with any cologne brands. He scored 7 goals in 1 game in 1920, and he also has this record of posting up 2 hat tricks to start off a season. He's also a Hockey Hall of Famer, no surprise there. The guy's first NHL season is kind of insane. It is that 1917-1918 bananas bonkers season. Take a look at this. Joe Malone, in 20 games played with the Canadiens, had 44 goals and 4 assists for 48 points. Talk about a guy who scores more than he assists, dude. That's crazy. Like, could you imagine if somebody was able to do that nowadays? 44-goal season, but he only had 4 assists? I get it. The NHL, the hockey rules, they were kind of different back then. I'm not too sure when exactly it was that players were not allowed to pass the puck forward beyond the lines, etc., etc. There were some extra line rules that made hockey a much more different sport back in the day. But still, just getting the amount of goals here, 2.22 goals per game in 1 season is kind of crazy. Matthews, of course, right now is averaging more than that. He is averaging 3 goals a game, which would be even crazier, but I mean, it's only going to be so long that the guy's going to be able to score hat tricks over and over again. But even with this record being a 100-year thing, there still is one other guy in 2017-2018 who did this too. Alex Ovechkin had 2 hat tricks in 2 games to start out the 2017-18 season, and he ended off that campaign with a pretty good stat line of, what is the number right here, 87 points in 82 games played, 49 goals. Honestly, a little bit disappointing considering he started out with a hat trick in 2 games straight, but hey, he won the cup. So that's totally okay, right? In fact, here's a Steve Dangle tweet that articulates that emotion pretty nicely. So he's replying to Nick, who says this: so the last time a player scored a hat trick in back-to-back games to start the season was Ovechkin in 2017-18, the year they won the cup? And then you have Steve Dangle replying with the Family Guy Peter Griffin looking up in realization meme. So I'm not going to say Toronto's winning the cup. I'm not going to say Matthews is going to get 90 goals and break Gretzky's record or whatever. But just right now, he's proven everybody wrong. He's proven everybody wrong that said that his 60-goal campaign was the outlier. That last season, his decline, his down year to 40 goals was going to be more of the realistic path that Matthews continues to go down. He is on pace for 243 goals in this season's worth of play, with 6 in 2 games to start out the year. So I think, based off of the numbers, based off of the data we're seeing here, if Matthews is able to produce, let's say 60, 65 goals, maybe he gets 70. I don't think that'd be too unrealistic, right? 70 goals for Matthews? I mean, he's already got a pretty good head start. Even just getting 70 and 80-something games played, that's Bush League compared to what Joe Malone did 100 years ago with his 44-goal campaign in 20 games. If Matthews is able to get anywhere close to that, then he is already cementing himself in the NHL history books, and as somebody who definitely is worth that dollar amount too. So, Toronto Maple Leafs fans, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Auston Matthews getting the goals that he has scored? What are your thoughts on the ways he is scoring these goals? Not all of these goals have been absolute bomb one-timers, or goals where Matthews is leading the rush himself, coming in on goal, dangling by 2 guys, and then sniping at top cheese. He is finding himself in the right areas. He's putting himself in dangerous spots, even spots that aren't dangerous. He's putting himself there, like the ones on the side of the net. And he's firing it, it's getting through, he's beating goalies, he's bouncing it off of opposing players, and he is getting it done. Thoughts on the way he is scoring goals this season? How many goals do you think he ends off the year with? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.